Okay, and with that, I will just give a brief introduction to our speakers today. Okay, so welcome back. I hope everyone enjoyed the breakouts. As the last part of our event, we'll now hear from our keynote speaker, Dr. Paolo Narciso from AARP, who will be introduced by the Dean of Northeastern's Bouvé College of Health Sciences, Dr. Carmen Sceppa. Dr. Sceppa herself is a geriatrician who has substantial work in this space. Her work focuses on three main research areas, the first being efficacy of exercise interventions on health risk factor reduction, the second being translation of evidence-based exercise interventions to the real world, and the third being the development of sustainable strategies for health promotion and optimal health. Please join me in welcoming her.
Hello, everyone. And again, apologies. My name is Carmen Sceppa, Dean of Northeastern's Bouvé College of Health Sciences. And I'm very excited to be participating in today's event, as the topic of geriatric nutrition, as it was mentioned, is really near and dear to me as a physician, as well as a nutrition scientist specializing in this very area. I applaud all the students participating for these great ideas and efforts throughout this competition. Reimagine healthcare, particularly when challenged by the unexpected, like the COVID-19 pandemic we are living through, requires an innovative and entrepreneurial mindset that considers the individual, society, industry, and the economy. Northeastern Student Group Vital embodies that mindset, promoting innovation, collaboration, and engagement among students, their communities, and industry leaders. I commend and thank the organizers, the organizing committee from Vital for their work to convene today's gathering and look forward to the future events and conversations. Before moving into the second half of today's program, I'd like to acknowledge and thank our event sponsors, including AARP Innovation Labs, Accenture, Johnson & Johnson, Trinity Life Sciences, Northeastern's Bouvé College of Health Sciences, Curry College of Computer Sciences, and the College of Engineering, as well as the Health Science Entrepreneurs Program and Mass eHealth Institute. Now, I am pleased to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Paolo Narciso. Paolo is AARP's Foundation's Vice President of New Product and Program Development, overseeing the Foundation's work, developing and managing effective solutions for vulnerable older adults. In his role, he oversees the development and management of products and solutions that create new economic opportunities and address social isolation and loneliness, as well as food and housing security for vulnerable older adults. The solutions that AARP Foundation has developed range from using artificial intelligence, voice, and virtual reality technologies to traditional in-person emergency relief programs that meet the immediate needs of older adults in crisis. Prior to joining AARP Foundation, Paolo was the CEO of Cloud Health Asia, now Life Science, which provides primary care physicians access to underserved populations in Southeast Asia. Paolo is also the founder of Global Medical Technologies, which develops devices used for medical emergencies in underserved regions of the world. And I have to say, this is a very important work coming from Guatemala in Latin America. I can tell you that the work done in other areas around the globe is really very important. Paolo is also, as we can see, he is a serial entrepreneur with numerous startups in technology. He received his master's degree from Western Carolina University and his doctorate from Creighton University. He also attended the U.S. National War College. Paolo, I now turn it to you, and thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much, Dean Sceppa, and thanks for the opportunity to be able to speak to all of you today. And I am encouraged by everyone's work. It is exciting for me to be able to see how much you all care about the issues, specifically at the intersection of aging and health, which are significant issues for our society today. As you know, the people 65 and older will be about 1 in 3 of our population in about 2050. So we are moving into a realm where we're going to have a lot more people over 45 than we are going to have younger people. That presents a tremendous amount of challenges for everyone. And I think we can solve those challenges. And I'm very appreciative of how quickly you all are starting to do that. Not only in this competition, but I know you'll do it throughout your particular career. So I'm going to start off by just telling you a little bit of my story. There's only 3 things I really want to go through today in the brief time that we have together. I'll tell you a little bit about my story, how I kind of got to AARP Foundation and doing the work that I do today, as well as leave you with some challenges and the way we see it, the way I specifically see it, as we look at the issues of aging and health, and then leave you with a few principles of design that I use as and what my team uses as we try to tackle these challenges, not only internally with our own teams, but as we collaborate with others around the world. As Dr. Sceppa said, I am a serial entrepreneur, and all that simply means is that I can't stop starting new things. That is part of my DNA. When I was 5, I started my first business. I don't want to call it a company. And it was I decided I would make pencils, and sell them, obviously. But the way I did it was I actually bought pencils from a store and then made some stuff to wrap around it with my own brand. So that's not necessarily making anything, but at 5, I thought I was pretty ingenious. I'm not really sure how many of those I sold, but I know I had to raise money from my mom and dad to be able to buy those pencils. My dad was very happy to give me the money. My mom said that I'll give you the money, but as long as you become a doctor, it'll be fine. So you never want to not do what your mom says. You can break all your promises, just not to your mom. That's like the worst thing to do. You'll have bad karma for the rest of your life. I was an entrepreneur in college. I paid for much of my education by starting stuff. Some of them I'm not quite so proud of. I actually paid for a good portion of my first 2 years in undergrad work, selling knockoff designer clothing from my dorm room. This is the early 80s. So it was illegal then. I'm sure I know it's illegal now, but what did I know at that particular point in time? Until my dean decided to tell me that that's actually something we shouldn't do. But fortunately, I raised enough money to be able to buy a candy computer. Again, you guys probably don't know what that is, but in the 80s, so that was the thing. And I sold time on my computer so people could write their particular papers. Sold it for about $25 an hour. I had a line of students always outside my door. And unfortunately, because of my previous business venture from my dorm room, my dean had to check on me a couple of times just to make sure I wasn't writing those papers for the other students at the university. And I promise you, I wasn't doing any of that at all, and would never want to encourage that. So that's kind of where I started from a kind of an entrepreneurship perspective. That led to many startups, including lugging around 15 to 16, we call luggables, which are not even a category anymore. And from a computer perspective, these were suitcase-sized computers with about a 3x3 screen. And I would go around and set them up in major corporations around the US and around the world, teaching people how to use some of the new technologies that were emerging at that particular time. That ultimately led to becoming Microsoft Educational Services. So I've had a lot of unexpected transitions as I start something and then decide it goes somewhere else. I stopped doing that for a while and thought I'd retire and become a school teacher. I wanted to teach high school science, but unfortunately, no one responded to my applications. I'm not quite sure. I think probably they looked at the fact that I was doing something illegal in my first 2 years of college and said, we don't want him in our high school. I'm not sure. They never actually responded to any of my applications. But ironically, it did lead me to a next startup that I did, which is a telehealth service. One of my friends, a doctor who owns several emergency services and urgent care services in upstate New York, said, why don't we start a business where we are going to be able to help teachers, of all people, be able to access care 24/7 over the internet. It's one of the very first telehealth services in the United States. We signed up about 70,000 teachers in our very first year, and it's still going very, very strong today. Then I decided after that I'd go to the Philippines. My dad, unfortunately, had passed away, and going back to the Philippines, I looked at, I was able to firsthand see some of the issues from a healthcare perspective that just weren't being addressed. Incidentally, one of the businesses that I started prior to Cloud Health was a call center company. It was one of the very first call center companies in Asia. Actually was, I think, the first in the Philippines, doing work for Microsoft and for Intuit and Apple, supporting their customers in the US. That kind of is the call center business that you see today. And when I came back, that business had grown, not my own personal business, but the industry had grown to employing millions of people. And if you know anything about that particular work, you normally work as a call center agent at the night shift. You work from 8 o'clock until 6 or 7 in the morning or 8 o'clock in the morning, supporting US Western hours. And it's well paid compared to other positions there. The problem is that I don't think humans were meant to be able to stay up at night all the time and live that way. And also because you were, in fact, getting much more disposable income, you're able to spend it. And you spent it on things like fast food restaurants, which also grew around many of these particular businesses to be able to serve the employees, the thousands and thousands of employees that were coming out of these buildings. It's the same issue. It's also happening in other areas in the world like India. And so when I was meeting with a lot of their CEOs, they told me that the absenteeism rate of their employees was very high because they were sick. A lot of people had headaches. But if you worked all night and then you decided that you wanted to go and see a doctor because you didn't feel well, you'd have to do that during the day, which meant you didn't sleep at all and you weren't spending time with your family. And if you know anything about traffic in Southeast Asia, specifically Manila and places like Jakarta, you might be 3 miles away from someplace and it might take you 3 hours to be able to get there. So if you were working all night, had to go to the doctor the next day, you pretty much stayed up until your next shift started. It created a significant endemic in the business where there's such a high rate of chronic illness. And so we decided at that point to address those particular issues with technology, as well as physical clinics to be able to make it easier for folks to be able to get the care that they need. And that then just expanded around all over Southeast Asia. I retired, and that's when AARP decided to bring me on board to be what's called a social entrepreneur in residence. My job is to literally come up with new stuff. I think it's the best job in the world, where I get to look at all these different issues and figure out exactly, how might AARP be part of this particular solution, knowing quite well that we wouldn't do it. We couldn't be the solution ourselves, but that we would need to collaborate with others in the marketplace to be able to achieve those solutions. And those range from a series of technology solutions, as Dean Sceppa talked about, from AI to virtual reality. We have one of the fastest growing virtual reality platforms in Oculus now, with over 230,000 people downloading our product called Alcove, to our voice technology that resides in many of the assisted senior living facilities in the United States, to the emergency services provided in COVID, both food services as well as getting more than about 200,000 devices in partnership with companies like T-Mobile and Consumer Cellular to low-income older adults all around the United States so that they can stay in touch with their family and also use telehealth during this time of the pandemic. So we're obviously very, very proud of our particular work, which leads me to the next topic that I want to talk about, which is the kind of the issues that we face from an aging perspective. I will share my screen. At this point, I put together just 2 slides and they're just there for background because I don't think you guys want to look at my face the entire time while I'm talking. But I will share. Let's see. Let's see if that works. 1 second. All right. It's actually not working today from a Zoom perspective. Mega, do you happen to be able to save me here?
Okay. Give me 1 second.
Awesome. For some reason, my Zoom, I think what's happening, especially with this pandemic and more people working from home, is that the technology actually gets tired by the weekend. And so, it stops working, but there's nothing technical about that. But at least that's my, thank you, Mega, for sharing that. So I just wanted to go over just real quickly some of the areas, the way we look at it and some of the challenges that we have as you look at aging and the issues, around aging. And we look at it kind of as 8 issue areas. One is productive aging. And what that means is that as people get older, you lose the ability or you use your muscle in terms of engaging with others and building social capital, making friends, things of that particular nature. It leads to issues like social isolation. You still have issues, obviously, like ageism. And then again, as I talked about, there's just the overall loss of social capital. So we look at aging and say, how do we encourage engagement and purpose as someone ages? Right? Because I think that's essential. This is a base level for human desire to be feel that you're needed and that you're productive. And as we live longer and longer lives, we need to make sure that those challenges are addressed. Obviously, as we go older. And I'm going down the PowerPoint slide here instead of across. That's just to give you guys a little bit of a eyeball calisthenics this afternoon, but there's also the issues of financial health and then reskilling. People are aging longer. Their traditional models of work and retirement have obviously not kept pace with those with how people age. As you know, Social Security was designed back then where our average life expectancy was 65. So paying people off past 65 was never really part of the plan. And meeting with the person who started 401k plan several years ago, those were never even designed to actually completely cover what you need for retirements. And that obviously challenges with the need to create new models for employment, but at the same time, issues around fraud and scams, and also how do you help an older adult continue to develop the skills they need to stay active in the workplace and to continue building income security, specifically as they get older. There's the transportation and mobility issues, as you're all aware. Our cities are just not built for aging. If you look around and look at many of the bus stops, there aren't even any benches, and they were taken out predominantly for the fact that they didn't want people to loiter around those particular benches, but they also obviously affect the aging population. We rarely have sidewalks anymore, and walkable communities are rare. And then this challenge even gets bigger as we look at rural areas and the issues around transportation in those rural areas. Aging in place is a big desire for many older adults. They want to age in place in their community or in their home. And we need solutions for them to be able to stay at home, because 1 in 3 older adults actually need help with activities of daily living. So how do you address those particular issues and still meet the need of the older adult who want to stay in place, right? Which is better for them in many, many ways, without me going through all of that particular research. There's also the burden of family caregiving and the shortages of professionals that do this. As you all know, from a healthcare perspective, the burnout rates for physicians and nurses is very, very, very high. It's very high, obviously, during COVID now, but it was high before that. But if you look at just general caregivers and shortage of professionals there, both paid and unpaid, it is becoming an increasing challenge. And family caregivers who more than likely moved away from their parent or the older adult that they care for, has some challenges also there, right? Where you, at one time in our society, everybody lived close together, and now we're kind of all spread apart. It was my issues with my parents that were obviously overseas, and how do we care for our families this way as unpaid caregivers? And in many cases, family caregivers also have younger people in the family to care about. It's what we call the sandwich generation. And then there's obviously the issues of health, which you all are addressing. Issues of brain health, issues of disease prevention, chronic disease management are big issues. Alzheimer's disease is the 6th leading cause of death in the United States, projected to cost us about $1.1 trillion by 2050. And it is growing. The incidence of Alzheimer's is growing amongst older adults over 85, 33%. And that's just one particular issue regarding brain health. Issues on hearing loss and the relationship between hearing loss and dementia are very much, the evidence is very much being studied today. And we're showing that there are, in fact, correlations between the two. And by the way, hearing loss doesn't just start when you get old. Many younger people are also experiencing hearing loss, probably because we spend a lot of time listening to our, having our speakers in our ears or going to very loud concerts. So those are kept through now in the pandemic, but that it's also a growing trend. And an area that we never really want to look at, but it is end of life. And in many cases, while we all try to avoid it, regardless of our religious beliefs, we're all going to die. Even though there are many technologies that are trying to prevent that, it is inevitable. And how do you help prepare somebody for the end of life, both emotionally, physically, obviously psychologically, and not just for that older adult, but also for their families? It is a need, a human need, to not want to be forgotten. And as you reach that particular stage of your life, we don't necessarily address these issues. I was speaking with an emergency care doctor just a few days ago, and he said if there's one thing he could do, is how to get people prepared for dying, because he feels it just never addressed, and there's a lot of issues around it. And then lastly, as people age, we never want to forget disability and aging. 65% of older adults have more than one disability. Whether it's eyesight and loss of hearing, and this creates a ton of complexity for us. I'll layer that over, if you don't mind moving to the next slide, Mega, with a couple of trends, and I'll just touch over these quite briefly. In terms of, these are just overall trends that we look at that are happening in the world, that obviously affect how we develop our solutions. And so the first is kind of the new forms of power, right? The traditional powers, like, for instance, I do whatever my employer says, I just follow what my government says for us to do, just kind of doesn't exist. We had that issue here in COVID, and is very, very evident at this point. We follow crowd wisdom. There is the attention economy, and with social media, tribalism is very rampant here, and we sometimes don't trust information. It comes from all over the place, and it is readily available that are very unsure exactly what to trust. And so that's an area where we have to think about how people look at authority and influencing. The second is distributed networks and co-creation. This is an ongoing trend. If you look at stuff like Linux, for instance, Wikipedia, those are all open networks. And it blurs the lines and the boundaries, but it also grows solutions or options within that particular environment. We could take advantage of open distributed networks. Again, another example is stuff like Bitcoin or blockchain. How do you work with complex adaptive coalitions? How do you look at healthcare, and how do you look at distributed healthcare given this particular trend? There's a shifting consumer experience. People are very, very savvy these days about what they want to buy. They expect things to be incredibly personalized, but at the same time, they don't actually want to share data with you, right? So you got to know me, but it's kind of creepy if you know me. I mean, we have this particular paradigm, and so there's expectations from users. Data is obviously key to all of this. It is the new oil. This is what we're selling. And if you look specifically at vulnerable populations, in many cases, their data, which is generally abused, is actually the only asset they have. So how do we help leverage those and use things like artificial intelligence and so forth as the rise of artificial intelligence within that particular area? There's a whole bunch of new ways that companies can make money. There's obviously a maturing digital economy. There's a whole bunch of platform economics. NFTs, which are, all the rage in the papers over the last couple of weeks. Where will that go? There are people who are actually buying real estate within games and then selling that particular real estate as if it was in the real world. And so there's just all of these new ways to be able to make money, because tech is very much embedded in our particular lives, right? It facilitates everything. Our advances in health, business, the way we connect, using devices and the ability for devices to connect. Those are all just part of our reality and where we design. It is an area that I tend to spend most of my time in from a design perspective, but it is important outside of just the work that we do. And then there's the future of work. What does that look like? People who during the pandemic, we saw this again, people who could work from home, but we had the haves and the have-nots because of this. There's a rise of contingent workforce like those in Uber and the kind of the Uberification of everything. And then lastly, just livability and equity, which is the sum of a community's quality of life. How you look at economic prosperity, how you look at stability and equity. Is a widening income gap, inequality gap, specifically in Western countries. Cost of housing is getting higher and higher. Even if you look at assisted facilities as we get older, issues of climate change, and then accelerating social justice. So we layer all of these things on top of each other. Thank you, Mega, for being able to share that. We layer all of these things on top of each other. And so we as innovators have to figure out how to design against kind of these particular trends, knowing also what the issues are there. So how do we actually do that? So I want to leave you with my very last thing, which is the quick approach of how we actually design, or how I look at design in general. So the challenge I normally ask people to think about is, so how do we as kind of technologists, innovators, as health professionals, academics, design thinkers, and just, those of us that work in civil society kind of come together to accelerate development and adoption of these type of human-centered solutions that promotes autonomy, provides safety, and also well-being and dignity as people age, or specifically for older adults. The way I approach it is obviously, aside from asking the question, is to look at the trends and see what they are. And then you just have to pick one. And I don't want to say pick one. You probably want to pick a couple. It's hard just to stick to one, but pick a few areas. And then think about what is the problem that you're actually trying to solve as you look at these particular areas. Who is the intended audience, obviously, for that particular solution? What are the benefits? And then who are the stakeholders? This is, you all know how to do this. It's obviously how you've done your innovation. And you're also learning quite well that this is an interdisciplinary process. This isn't just doctors or computer scientists or engineers. This is about teachers and about healthcare workers, nurses, as well as caregivers in the field. But it also is about the people that you're actually working with, the older adults you're designing the solution with, where they have to be part of this solution. And we look at it from an issue of what we call progressive design, right? It's kind of like playing a game. What happens a lot with older folks is they get a piece of technology and they don't think it's actually for them because it has a lot of things that it does. And it's overwhelming in many cases. So is there a way for us to design where as people gain proficiency in one thing, it continually opens up the world for them or the technology for them to be able to access more and more and more and more and more complex things, no different than we would approach playing a game, right? A level one, you start off by just exploring, and then you figure out I can do a lot more crazy things, and then you're Super Mario Brothers and saving the princesses. I mean, those are the type of things that why don't we look at those particular approaches when we are in fact designing? And then lastly, it is also about our assumptions, right? We have to assume and accept that tech will not solve everything, that there are areas where we have to look at how do we do this with as little tech as possible, because of the fact that at the end of the day, you are designing for humans, and humans have all of the base level needs that we all have, right? We need those base level needs and kind of Maslow's hierarchy to be able to be met. We can't get them to be able to use a smartphone if they don't feel safe in their particular home itself. I mean, there are just levels that we just need to think about as we design these for humans. So think about that as you do your innovation, as you continue on your careers with innovations. But the other last thing that I promise I will leave this for you all, and as the last thing is that don't forget that you are also humans. As designers, you guys are the ones that are coming up with these solutions, and you have your own issues as humans, right? We all do. We have our biases. We have also our needs. There are days where I go through a roller coaster where I go, sheesh, I'm the smartest human in the world at this particular minute, to holy cow, I'm going to be sued because this is a disaster, right? To, okay, I'm not going to be sued. It's all going to be fine. And then back to, I'm the smartest human in the world. And then I'm back down to, that is the cycle of life. When we look at innovation and we take on these challenges of design, it's a good thing, I think, to have those doubts and to know the fact that you are not always right, that you do need to rely on other people out there. And that in our new world, it is important for us to be able to leverage all the talent and all the resource we can to actually develop our particular solutions. And then lastly, because you are humans, you got to make sure that you're also taking care of yourself. And I've seen more than enough innovators out there. In fact, a statistic, entrepreneurs are the loneliest people in the world, right? Just read Elon Musk's Facebook page, and it will tell you exactly what that means. So because of the fact that you generally what drives you and being able to create value, you tend to push aside everything else. It is a very lonely profession. So it is, they're the most socially isolated and also the loneliest, folks out there. And generally that's us. So we need to take care of ourselves, realize that, and figure out, how to address our own issues and be sensitive and reflective of those areas. I'll leave one more thing, and it's just simply a thank you for everyone today. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be able to speak to you all this afternoon. But also, thank you for working on these particular issues. You guys need to speed up because I'm getting close to that age. And so I need these solutions for my own self. But no, seriously, I do want to thank you. I was talking with Sceppa just a few days ago, and I was reflecting on, at your age, when I was your age back then, was I even thinking about aging? Was I even thinking about healthcare? Was I even thinking about these very important issues, right? I mean, clearly you found out that I was selling knockoff designer fashion stuff. So probably wasn't thinking about it back then, but it's just amazing that you all are doing that. So thank you very much for the work that you are doing, and I wish you all continued success, as you go on with your careers. And thank you also for all the sponsors that are part of this, to give our emerging leaders the opportunity in the space to be able to continue to look for solutions. With that, I'll turn it back over to Dean Sceppa.
Thank you, Paolo. This is wonderful. Thank you for really the insightful comments that you've made, and how inspiring it is to hear your journey. And we have incredibly talented students, as you can see with this group, and so it really is wonderful to see the possibilities when this collaboration happens. Understanding the issues and the trends, and really marrying these two to create impactful solutions that are innovative and not siloed, and really don't pay attention or overcome the barriers. So thank you again, and I'll turn it back to Mega.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. Both of you, we really, really appreciated listening to you. And I'm going to turn it over to Elisa, who's just going to continue with our program for the day.
Yeah, awesome. Again, thank you. This was so amazing, just as a culmination of all these innovations that the students have been pitching, and also the work that we've put in on the organizing side. So before we started out with the words, I did want to thank everyone for joining us, and specifically acknowledge all those who played a role in making this competition possible. So one of our goals was to make this event free to participants and eliminate any sort of financial barriers to participating, and our sponsors made this possible. Thank you to AARP Innovation Labs and Accenture, our platinum sponsors, Northeastern's Bouvé College of Health Sciences, Johnson & Johnson, and Trinity Life Sciences, our gold sponsors. Northeastern's College of Engineering, Northeastern's Corey College of Computer Sciences, and the Health Science Entrepreneurs at Northeastern, our silver sponsors. And finally, MIHI, the Massachusetts eHealth Institute, our bronze sponsor. You can find out more information about our sponsors on our website, vitalhhhic.org/pitch-day. We encourage you to learn more about the amazing sponsors that supported us through our website, and a lot of them lead incredible initiatives in spaces overlapping or similar to geriatric nutrition and digital health. We next wanted to thank the individuals who made this competition possible, and even this list is not even the most comprehensive. So our first round judges, led by Lori and Philip from the Health Science Entrepreneurs, worked very quickly to help us narrow down the competition from 21 submissions to 5 finalist teams. So thank you, Ravi, Lori, Cassie, Anne, Anthony, Phil, Christopher, Pam, Robert, Shashank, and Philip. Our mentors were present to field participant questions throughout the 2-week competition. So a thank you to Alice, Danny, Sarah, Varun, and Rena. And our judges who came in this morning, our finalist judges, helped evaluate all morning our finalists to select our top 3 by engaging in back-to-back pitches this morning. So thank you to Judy, Glenn, Beth, and Kavita. And finally, thank you to those who helped us with our workshops. We hosted 3 so far: in-person centered design, digital health through the ages, and finally, business concepts in public health. So thank you again to Sarah, as well as Scout Design Labs. Thank you to Anurag, Katie, Naomi, Rachel, and the Case Institute. Finally, our team has been working really hard on making this competition a reality for almost a year, and we're so happy to have seen it grow during such a critical time for healthcare innovation. So thank you to the whole Vital eBoard, in addition to our planning team of Mega, Aditya, and Giancarlo, as well as our collaborating organizations, MAPS, the Minority Association of Pre-Health Students at Northeastern, and CASE, the Consulting and Advisory Student Experience, as well as our club advisors, Lori Bishop, Philip Summer, and Kevin Scalman, for their support. And finally, I'm almost done. None of this would have been possible without our participants. We've grown over 4 times since last year's event. And for this competition alone, we're so excited to have had 88 participants from 8 universities to create 23 teams. A special thanks to the 5 finalists who spent 2 weeks working on this and presented today. So finally, I will stop that and hand it off to Christopher Hahn, the Executive Director of Vital, who will present our awards.
Thanks, Elisa. So as Elisa mentioned, my name is Christopher Hahn. I'm an undergraduate student at Northeastern University and the current executive director here at Vital. As some of you may know, Vital is Northeastern's Healthcare Innovation Corps. We are an undergraduate academic enrichment and professional development club. And our main goals are to inspire students to learn more about healthcare innovation, connect them with other like-minded students, speakers, and employers, and then give them the resources to develop skills to contribute to the field in the form of creating their own innovation, consulting for a healthcare startup, or participating in a healthcare case competition such as this one. Frankly, I'm beyond honored that Elisa has asked me to present the awards today. But before I do, I just want to say a few more words. I'll try to keep it quick because I know the weather's pretty stunning outside in Boston today. So first, I believe we should all give a huge round of applause to Elisa and her team of Mega, Giancarlo, and Aditya for putting together this amazing event we've been able to experience today. The leadership displayed by Elisa and the commitment and selflessness showed by her team over these past 11.5 months has been nothing short of spectacular. Personally, having been an active observer in their Slack channels, sitting in on some of their team meetings, I've been able to see all the ideas that have come to fruition, all the hurdles that they've had to jump over, and all the walls they've had to run through, essentially, and so much more to create this event today. You know, 2 years ago, Shashank Madhu, who's also present on this call and who's a friend and colleague to, I'm sure, a lot of you on this call, Shashank led a team of 4 Northeastern undergraduates to create the first ever Husky Health case competition. And looking back, it's amazing to see the exponential growth of the competition and the people from all walks of life and all different stages of their life that it's brought together today. And it's all thanks to Elisa and her team. Last night, knowing I'd be presenting the awards, I looked up the word winner in the Merriam-Webster dictionary. And the first definition I found was winner, one that is successful, especially through praiseworthy ability and hard work. And so Elisa, Mega, Giancarlo, and Aditya, while y'all aren't competing today, I think we can all agree that you are all winners. And so as Elisa previously mentioned, Husky Health Innovation Challenge 2021, being the only undergraduate healthcare case competition in the greater Boston area, has brought together 88 participants from 8 colleges and universities. While colleges and universities in the greater Boston area are geographically close, interactions between students in academic settings is oftentimes limited. So events such as Husky Health Innovation Challenge provide an opportunity for undergraduate students to not only develop and hone their hard and soft skills, but also to learn from and to learn about students from surrounding universities. Combining all of this with the goal of creating a solution for a pressing healthcare matter, in this case, a digital solution to geriatric malnutrition, leads to an ideal scenario that's really beneficial to first and foremost the patients, and second, the students, employers, universities, and all parties involved. And so to the participants, thank you again for dedicating 2 weeks of your time this semester to our competition. We truly hope that you have all enjoyed this competition experience, and we hope that you all walk away with not only a better understanding of the gravity of geriatric malnutrition, but also the desire to carry out your innovative proposed solutions. In this call today, there are plenty of great judges, mentors, and sponsors here who I'm sure would be more than happy to offer advice on next steps to potentially move your proposals forward. And lastly, please join me in giving a round of applause to our 5 finalist teams who have presented here today. These teams, as Elisa mentioned, were chosen out of a total of 21 teams that submitted first round proposals. So simply qualifying for today's event is a great accomplishment in and of itself. Okay, so now for the moment we've all been waiting for, it's time to announce the winners of Husky Health Innovation Challenge 2021. I'm going to be announcing the top 3 teams, starting with 3rd place. If your team is announced, please feel free to unmute yourself and say whatever you like. You can introduce yourself. You can thank whoever you like. You can also choose to not say anything. It's completely up to you. And then lastly, thank you again to our sponsors who have helped make these cash prizes possible. So with that, In third place and receiving a total of $500. Congratulations to Shreya Nair, Elizabeth Si, and Raymond Lin from Harvard University.
Oh, thank you guys so much for the opportunity to compete. This was such a fun competition. And yeah, me and Raymond are from Harvard and Lizzie's from Northeastern, and it was great to have that like inter-college connection. And yeah, it was really fun.
Awesome. Congrats and thanks so much. Cool. So now I'm going to move on to the second place team. In second place and receiving a total of $1,000 in cash prizes. Congratulations to Debbie Nguyen, Eva Karivula, Sahum Sheth, and Sophia Tan from Northeastern University.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Thank you so much. We really enjoyed the experience. We learned so much. I think the most rewarding part was learning from everyone, learning from the mentors and having that support. I joined last year, and I think compared to last year, this is like a huge step up, and it was great to be able to participate. And thank you again for hosting.
Awesome. Thank you for participating last year and then again this year. And now we're going to move on to our first place team. So in first place, your winners of Husky Health Innovation Challenge 2021 and the recipients of the grand prize of $1,500. Congratulations to Neva Haber, Olivia Oliver Poor, Ben Radler, and Ashia Singh from Boston University.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was honestly a great experience, and I think we all really, really enjoyed it. And the mentors were amazing, and you guys organizing it all did a really awesome job. And pitch day was great as well. So thank you guys for this opportunity, and see you guys next year, I guess.
Yeah, thank you everyone. It was such a great experience. All the mentors were super helpful, and it was super organized. So great experience.
I also want to say thank you so much to everyone that organized this competition, and most importantly to my teammates.
Yeah, I'd also like to say thank you. I literally learned so much. It was such a great experience, and can't wait to do it again.
Amazing. Thank you everyone for coming. Chris, if you have any last words.
Yeah, I just wanted to say congrats again to all the winners. And again, thank you to all the finalists, participants, sponsors, judges, mentors, speakers, volunteers, and the attendees who have helped make this event possible. On behalf of the entire HHIC and Vital team, I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your Saturday and weekend. Please feel free to stick around and chat with one another. Vital members are going to be staying on the call to answer questions about HHIC or Vital. Thank you again to all the parties involved. Please stay safe and healthy, and we'll see you next year at Husky Health Innovation Challenge 2022.